Hello, welcome to our webinar today, AI and SEO, Navigating the Future of Travel. I'm Katie, I'm on the marketing team at Aidaptive. I'll be monitoring the chat today. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can put them in the questions tab and we will reserve those for the Q&A portion at the end. Today we have Braeden Flaherty. He brings 15 years of experience to his current role at Aidaptive as a hospitality program manager. With Aidaptive, he helps deploy AI on direct booking websites. And with Braeden, we also have Fransden, ICND's brand manager and former small business owner. Diamond is the American Express Small Business Champion for 5 consecutive years. So we're really excited to have her as an SEO expert on the chat today. And Diamond, I will hand it off to you to start the webinar.
All right, well, thank you. I'm happy to be here with my friends, Braeden and Katie from Aidaptive. And Braeden, you are going to be our Vanna White for today, correct?
I'm going to do my best. Yep.
All right. So today we are talking about AI and SEO and how we are navigating the future of this for travel for not only BRMs, but also the user themselves when they're going through the booking funnel. So we're going to just quickly touch on SEO of the past, the role that AI is playing in travel today. Braeden and I have joked around over the past few weeks saying like what we're saying today may not even be relevant in 6 months, may not even be relevant in 3 months. So please, the information that we're sharing today is the best information that we have available to us today and that we're putting into practice. And we may have to, update this in the future and come back and share our updated thoughts on how this is changing, travel and adapting into the future. We're also going to review some tips for your SEO that you can either share with your agency. I do see a lot of our clients, our ICD clients in the chat. So thank you for joining that. But we definitely will be sharing some tips that you can implement yourself or you can parlay over to your agency. We'll talk about AI and direct bookings, and then our long-term outlook. And Braeden and I is our opinions and or what do you want to say, Braeden? Our predictions for the future?
We'll go out on a limb and make some predictions over the next, 12, 18 months of AI, which I'm confident we'll probably both be wrong, but we'll do our best there.
We'll try our best. We will try our best to see how those predictions pan out. All right, so first things first is we need to kind of know how we got here, using SEO in the past. So, it used to be like the funny thing where, if you had 100 of your keywords, on a competitor's website, well, in order to compete with that competitor of yours, you just slap on 150 of those similar keywords onto your website and you're good to go. And Google's like, oh, they said it 150 times. Yeah, they must rank first. But obviously we know that's not, how today works. But going back to old SEO tactics, yes, keywords. In the beginning, the only way to perform any kind of SEO functionality and optimization was on-page activities that included, those long-term keywords, good and relevant content, internal links and outbound links, enough text on the page. That was a big one. It's like having like these big long pages of text and then accurate HTML tags. Now, those are all well and good, and those are all still well and good today. But we know things are changing, and these are not the only factors that come into effect when Google crawls and things that your page is well optimized. So we'll kind of go into some of those other recent adaptations when it comes to optimization. But these are like the initial things that back in the day when SEO became a thing that people were using to optimize your page on site. So Braeden, with a little bit of the history lesson out of the way, let me ask you, where are we at now that AI has entered the chat?
Yeah. So, I think it's no secret that AI has been massively disruptive, not just to travel, but to the search industry. So very briefly, I just kind of want to cover where we're seeing some of that impact and what sorts of AI are doing that. I think most folks are fairly familiar with generative AI at this point, using AI to generate content, whether that be text, imagery, or video. We've seen that really garner a lot of attention in popular media. But there are other schools of AI that are massively influential. And so just kind of bringing some awareness to that. Predictive AI, which is using artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze very large sets of data to make predictions about the future. And that can be massively helpful for things like business intelligence, forecasting, and how Aidaptive uses that is to predict guest intent and customer preference. And that is closely associated with the third item we see on this page, which is adaptive AI, obviously where some of our inspiration for our name came from. And the difference between adaptive AI and some of those other schools is that adaptive AI is constantly using new data that becomes available to make updates to whatever the output of that AI model is creating. So, in our case, it might be taking into account the latest booking trends, the latest Google Analytics data, but things that are constantly being updated over time and changing outputs on that. And so we'll see why that is so critical. But I think it's helpful to look at AI not as a specific technology, but as a layer of technology that it can improve all aspects of your tech footprint, your marketing footprint, and even operations. I'm not going to read through all of the details on this slide, but this is some great content that the consultant agency Deloitte put together, talking through how AI can impact the entire guest lifecycle. And I think where that intersects with our conversation today is how AI is both helpful and also impacting, for good or bad, the search experience that exists prior to kind of what we would normally think of the start of a booking funnel. So this is for users who might be doing research on a destination, doing trip planning. Maybe they're not quite ready to book, but they're starting to see the availability of AI tools to kind of help them narrow in on creating kind of a great vacation experience. And just to call out a couple. Sorry, Diamond?
I was just going to say, sometimes you're looking and researching your vacation and you are using AI and you don't even realize that. And I know you're going to touch on some of those points, but it's like you just think it's convenient, but there is some AI behind what you're seeing when you're looking at your search destination.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even going back to traditional Google search results, there's a lot of machine learning that is involved there that we've used, historically, but certainly we're seeing that evolve with some recent Google announcements and their search generative experience, which we'll talk about, and then helping optimize for how you might make sure that your brand is able to influence the answers that these various artificial intelligence engines might be creating, and then making sure you're getting credit for that and getting attribution so that you can acquire some traffic. So we'll talk through a little bit of how to do that. But yeah, I think what we want to do is, this is not, it's not that you're going to be buying AI for the sake of AI, or you've purchased an AI provider and now you can check all the boxes for that. This is really just like, personal computing or the mobile revolution impacted all aspects of the guest lifecycle. We're seeing similar cases with AI from trip planning to purchasing to the experience on property, and then of course follow up. And so as mentioned, we're recording this, so I would encourage everybody to kind of take a look and consider each of the stages in here and whether AI can help them maybe solve some of the specific pain points they're having there. So just quickly talking through some of the AI advancements that specifically impact search. We've seen very recently Google bring to market AI overviews. This was formerly titled the Search Generative Experience. If you are a geek like some of us, you maybe enabled this or had access to the beta through Google Labs, but they have started rolling this out more broadly to the public. Some folks still need to enable this, but we are seeing more and more searches supplemented with those SGE or AI overview answers. And these are being pulled directly from Google's product called Gemini, which is, you can think of their competitor to ChatGPT. We've seen some interesting developments recently in terms of search and AI. Expedia somewhat famously launched their ChatGPT plugin. Google Gemini's paid tier also has launched some pretty significant trip planning tools. And I think it's important to call out, as much hype as there is around this, there were all kinds of white papers and case studies on that Expedia plugin. My opinion on this is that these are a good chance for us to see the direction the industry is going, but it's still not quite mainstream when we're talking about the usage of a ChatGPT plugin. However, when we start seeing this bleed over into actual Google search results, like now we see with Google AI overviews, this has really made the leap from something that's for the enthusiast, the nerd, to something that the broader public is going to be exposed to. And as business owners and marketing managers, something we felt was really important to keep you updated on, because it's a pretty significant change to the search experience overall. So I think as you see announcements coming out on travel specific capabilities, whether that's in Gemini, ChatGPT, or some of the other popular outlets, I think what you can assume is that that technology is going to trickle down or bleed into kind of all the other channels that we use for search and trip planning and things like that, and taking it out of that sandbox and just making it available as a general tool. So certainly we're seeing a massive increase in adoption and use now that Gemini is essentially in Google search results for many users.
Right, and with this point in mind, you think about like when new things are launched, a lot of like the heavy hitters of the industry will adopt it right away. And in our situation, that's great. Bring it on, please, because let them work all the bugs out and the kinks out, and also get the general public used to seeing that type of search result or suggestions. And then, once it's there and everything is worked out, like you said, coming out of that sandbox, then it can be easier applied to our direct booking websites. And then it's kind of like, it's no longer that new shiny thing. It's just kind of every day, right? It's an everyday thing that now is part of the travel booking journey. So, we've seen it before, and here we are, another roadblock we're coming to, and we just will have to tackle as a whole industry.
And it's a great point. And I think what's notable is the pace that's happening these days. There used to be a big disruption to search or digital marketing. It might be every couple of years. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing this massive increase in the pace at which new things are being rolled out. And to your point, like, yes, AI and all this used to be kind of something reserved for the enterprise, something reserved for, Fortune 1000 companies. But the nature of Moore's Law, if you're familiar with that, and just the pace of technological advancement, these things are becoming available to the small to medium-sized business very quickly. And I also think that there's some real pressure on the big players in here to be making fast updates. We're talking about how quickly, some of the information we share today may become outdated. And I think Google is a good example of that. A lot of analysts look at Google's rollout plan for this and really feel like they kind of had their hand forced by ChatGPT, that if left to their own devices, Google probably would have taken a more measured approach to releasing Gemini. But they can't be late to the market here. And so we really accelerate Gemini into search results. But what I won't be surprised by if this is a little bit unstable, and we'll see them kind of make some changes to how Gemini is integrated to the interface, to the sort of questions that it's responding to. And so certainly we're going to see this evolve, because I do feel like it was brought to market, maybe not in a rushed manner, but it certainly showed up pretty quickly.
Well, I think that also leads to, like how you and I have been discussing, AI across all different types of, parts of this business, whether it be content creation, image creation, like not only is this affecting SEO and search results, it's affecting all aspects of how we make content, relevant content for our consumers. Well, like we all have the jokes of like the person with 7 fingers on their hand. So yes, there is some bugs. It may feel a little rushed. It may feel you can't use it to its full capacity today. But yeah, over time, it'll smooth itself out, and then it will just be part of our everyday lexicon on how we're using AI.
Exactly. It's going to become second nature, like all of the software we've been using for a while now.
Like all those self-checkout lanes. No, go ahead.
Still maybe my least favorite thing. But as much as we see this technology revolution, kind of imposing changes on us and forcing us to adapt to a changing landscape, I think it's also important to call out that it's also making available tools that we can leverage for our own businesses in ways that we can stay ahead and be proactive on that. And so just calling attention to some of the places we see AI across the entire booking funnel today, certainly content generation. And there's definitely some caveats and some best practices to creating content, especially if search visibility is your goal. But that's a place I'm sure many people on this call have had good experiences in either drafting or refining content using a tool like ChatGPT. Aidaptive, I think, is really pioneering a lot of the personalization work for the hospitality industry. That's where we're leveraging AI to predict guest intent and make sure those guests are seeing content, properties, and products that are specific to their goals when they're interacting with a site, and that can help with conversion. I think a place we're going to see AI maybe quietly make a huge advancements and help for people is with accessibility. AI's ability to understand language and translate into various means, as well as accept inputs from different devices and things like that is huge. So if you're somebody who's visually impaired, if you're somebody who has challenges using a traditional device, AI can be huge for adapting a website experience for their use, adapting it to whatever controls they have for the computing device they're on. And it's huge for language as well. And so I think as marketers, we should look at this as a great opportunity to serve more of our addressable market, to make sure that our website can speak to everyone who wants to book a great trip. And then lastly, the place we've all been using AI for a while and probably haven't known it is with security and fraud protection. There's actually a number of Aidaptive team members who came from Google Payments fraud division. And again, using those patterns, understanding what makes a fraudulent transaction stick out from a non-fraudulent one is a lot easier when you've got millions and millions of transactions. And so payment processors, card processors like Visa, platforms like PayPal, all extensively use AI and have been for some time for security and fraud protection. So this is something we've all kind of had the advantages of using for a while, probably haven't had to implement ourselves. But as the tools become more affordable, more scalable, some of those same technologies become available to your typical vacation rental manager.
So how is this changing, right? How is all this talk about AI in our daily lives and in our searching for vacation? How is this affecting SEO, right? Because we kind of talked about it all started with optimizing our pages and how SEO was in the past. So how's it shifting today? Well, you mentioned it before, Braeden. The biggest shift is that search engine result page, and the search generative experience. And we now have a thing called position zero. Back, as marketers and as SEOs, we're like, oh, you gotta be number one, or else you're irrelevant. Well, now it's position zero. Those are those snippets of information that are floating to the top of the page when you get your result. So that is definitely something that is to keep in mind, like how do you even get into that position zero? We field a lot of that question as well. So position zero not only pushes organic results down in the SERP, but it also offers information without requiring users to click on the links, which, we say zero click results as well. That could reduce organic search traffic. So, SEO has evolved from those simple keyword matching tactics back in the 1990s that I spoke about earlier to these complex ranking systems that we see today. So again, here comes the question, how do we break into that position zero? Well, we have to follow these modern SEO practices. They're very user-centric, high quality content. We're learning today that everything we learn is within a 15-second snippet that we see on a social media platform. So it's like, how do we capture the attention of a guest looking for an area to vacation in within that top 15 seconds or that top position zero? So all that comes down to making sure that your SEO prioritizes high quality content, focuses on offering valuable information, addressing the user queries, and generally meets the audience needs. No longer are the days of putting best vacation rentals in Myrtle Beach 150 times on your site and you're going to go to the top. No, we really, really need to keep the user experience at the top of mind when it comes to optimizing pages with SEO. Now, I get this question as well. Is traditional SEO dead? Well, it depends. I know that's the cliche answer everyone's expecting to hear, but is it dead? No. people are still using search engines to find information. They may have their preference, but they're still using search engines to find out information. They're using it to research products. They're using it to learn new things. They're learning it to internally rate the results, like by testimonials and reviews that they're looking for, especially if they're buying a new product or traveling to a new area. They want to know what the reviews are for that area. But the way that Google organizes and displays and delivers those results to you is a bit different. And even so much so different that yesterday, Google announced that infinite scroll is going away. So, we touched upon what we're saying today may not even be relevant in 6 months. Well, that was a change that was announced just yesterday, that Google is going away with infinite scroll on desktop, and then mobile will follow, in the next few months. So, it's always changing. So webinars like this and talks about, like this are great to tune into and to watch, because it kind of brings you the up-to-date information.
So Diamond, quick question for you. I think we all recognize, yes, like the keyword stuffing era of SEO is hopefully behind us.
It is behind us, yeah.
But it does seem like, based on what you were just saying, a lot of maybe the themes of SEO, the best practices, what we keep in mind, is fairly similar. So we're not totally throwing out the content marketing playbook. We're not starting over. This is an evolution rather than a massive departure from the strategies we've been using recently.
Right. So during the beginning, I was talking about having quality content on your sites and on your pages as one of the older ways. Well, that's still here. It's still going strong. And that is one of the leading drivers in the way that, Google is looking at your site and potentially ranking you. Keeping focused on your customer creative, detailing content, addressing your customers' underlying needs and their questions. Think about the questions that you type in to a search engine. It's not going to be a 2 or 3 word sentence. You may have a little bit longer of a question you want to ask. Well, those questions that you're typing in as a user, think of that as the same or similar questions that your guests are typing in as well. And you want the content on your page to rise to the top and answer those questions. And I'm not talking about an FAQ page. I'm talking about the content, the written word on your website that answers those questions. And that's how we're going to get into that position 0, because it'll go out and find the content that answers that specific question. I have some tips.
Really, really briefly, I think one big change in what's kind of evolving there is, historically, when you did a Google search, you'd be presented with a list of links, and it was almost like a research project that you would be given. You then had to go click through and find things. And now with the search generative experience or the AI snippets, it's almost like Google's just giving you an answer rather than sending you out to do your own research. So what does that mean for, the content marketer? Are they still going to get traffic? And are they still going to get recognition for authoring or contributing the content that's being put in this snippet? Or is Google just giving them that answer and taking credit for that?
So we will see, and this is, I believe it's still in beta, so not available to everyone, but there is a reference or like if it's giving you that AI generated snippet, there would be, in the 3-dot menu or along the bottom there somewhere, they're still testing out the specific area where it's going to land, but there would be like an attribution to this information was found on, XYZ website. That way you have, we see it now with images too, right? When you're looking up images of, best toasters and it shows you all the images, like it will tell you that this image was pulled from this particular website. So there is, to answer your question, there is going to be some safeguards around where that information is pulled from and presented to you. So again, kind of going back to the research project, if you really like what the snippet pulled out for you and you can see that it was generated by this website, Seaside Vacations, then you can then go to that website and do your due diligence and your research there. So I know that where that will land on the page is they're still trying that out. But there will be an attribution in the future. And that's necessary, right? That's accountability as well. You want to make sure that you are getting information from a real website and not just something that was scraped from 1,000 different websites and mashed together. You want to be able to have that authenticity, and that kind of goes into some of my tips and tricks that I have today as well.
I was going to say it's a perfect transition to what can a vacation rental manager and marketer be doing to make sure they are given credit and they do have an opportunity to show up in that position zero.
Yeah, definitely. So SEO of today, it's all about the EEAT, the EAT experience. These quality principles, they still apply today. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. And it's really the driver behind the ranking system. It's what is the user experience? What is the expertise of the website, that's the information that's being pulled from the websites? What's the authoritativeness and what is the trustworthiness? So these are the 4 components that I know that myself and the ICND team is definitely focusing in on when creating content for our clients' websites. We definitely want to make sure that we're following these principles because they really still apply. Yes, to your point, they're updated a little bit. Like the old SEO playbook is not going out of the window. These are coming over. But these are the ones that I would really, really encourage everyone to focus on. And also think about signals, right? So a lot of this authoritativeness and trustworthiness is sent to Google from your signals. So, I see that we have a lot of clients on the call that have been around for 10, 15 plus years, and I think about signals, right? Where does your business have a digital presence? Social media, directories, Google business profiles, your local listings, your chamber, website, your Rotary website. Where has your business ever had been listed or ever had a digital presence? Even some of the ones in the directories that you think no one ever uses, I'll just say Angie's List or, Yellow Pages or that digital Yellow Page, even though you think no one ever goes there, that may be true. No one may be using those services, or the frequency of use of those services lower than when they were initially launched. But your information is still in that directory, and it's sending a signal behind the scenes to Google that's looking out for information about your business that may be outdated. So then we have the cause of confusion, right? Like Google's like, oh, well, their Google business profile says that they're open 24 hours for service and their physical building is open Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, these hours. But then this old directory back from 1999 may have complete opposite information. So then you cause a little bit of confusion. And my tip here really is to enable your agency or enable yourself or a member on your team to sit down and think about where your business ever had or still has a digital presence, and make sure that is all clean, all consistent. That way, the signal that those resources are sending to Google is the same message, and we don't have any conflicting messages that could, in essence, affect your rankings or the information that Google pulls to create those AI snippets.
And I maybe wanted to just touch on one of the principles you bring up here, the newest one being experience. We know that Google originally it was just EAT, where there are quality guidelines. They added a second E not long ago, which is experience. And if I'm a local property manager or vacation rental manager, that one gets me pretty excited because I know that I've got the experience in my market. I've got the experience, in knowing firsthand where the best beaches are, where the best places to eat are, where I should be staying. And so if I'm a property manager, I think that's where I would lean into that for some content, would be to make sure that that content reflects my direct experience there. And that also raises a bit of a pitfall and something we've seen some conflicting information on. And that's using generated content for SEO, using ChatGPT to write SEO content.
Right.
And there's a lot out here on this, but from what I understand, Google's not necessarily going to punish you for using ChatGPT to write content. But as we think about them already having a generative search tool, what is the value in you copying and pasting generated content if Google can be creating that on the fly from some of those same sources? And so if you are going to be using these tools to generate content, I would caution you to make sure that it still reflects your own experience or your guest's experience and is not something that a competitor or say like a national OTA without that local experience could write. Because even if you're not punished for it, it's probably not helping you as much if it doesn't demonstrate actual lived experience with whatever it is you're describing. And I think that's
one of the biggest,
advantage.
that's one of the biggest levers that you can pull as a vacation rental manager is your expertise, right? You're living there. You are a local. You're going to those new restaurants that open. You're going to the beach. You know when the beach is going to be closed for beach nourishment. Like, you are the one, boots on the ground. You can really, really leverage that experience to make your site fantastic. You know, I said it before, it's not just the FAQ page on your site that's going to answer these questions. It's the quality of the content that answers the questions, you know, like that consumers have when they're trip planning. You know, just even simple things, you know, like, what can I do for fun? You know, like, instead of a list of all the things you can do for fun, maybe there's pages out there that talk about, you know, the types of things that local people like to do, or the best things that people like to do, if this is found in your blog or on your things to do page or wherever you choose to put it. But it's really going back to providing quality, concise answers, because, you know, really those quality, concise answers are what those AI generated snippets are pulled to, right? So instead of something very long and very flowery and, you know, overly worded, we're finding that these AI snippets are not pulling in that information. They're looking for that quick, specific response that answers the question. You know, I kind of always tease about the 15 seconds, you know, that we're now drilled down to learning something new, but it's true. You know, like, if you put your question in and, oh my goodness, this great answer popped up, well, there you go. Like, but where did that come from? And, you know, that kind of goes, well, I can learn more if I go here, you know, so it kind of scratches that initial itch, but if you have more questions, you can go there and learn. I want to quickly, thank you for changing the slide, Braeden. I also want to quickly talk about some points about the competitive advantage. Now, this does not encompass all of the modern type of SEO tactics that you could be using. I think, you know, past webinars that you and I have done, we shared a slide when there was like 45 things on the slide and it gets overwhelming and people just, you know, their brains melt. But these are the ones that I would prioritize. And again, this is my opinion, but these are the ones I would prioritize is, you know, making sure that your long tail keywords are intact. Just because we're typing in questions that have long tail keywords in them. So we want to make sure that we're using, you know, those long tail keywords to answer those questions. Again, the user questions, like, you know, structure content in a way that answers the common questions related to trip planning, use headings, use subheadings, bullet points to make it easier for AI to extract that relevant information. We talked a lot about content already and what that looks like, you know, making sure that you are the expert when providing that content. The featured snippets is always a great thing to go after. Now, here comes the debate, and you and I could maybe debate this, you know, a little bit in the future, but featured snippets as we know it today is slowly getting replaced by these AI generated snippets, right? So we're seeing a shift already. You know, what we know as the traditional featured snippet is sometimes being replaced by the AI generated snippet. So there is some thought process behind that and how to make sure your site is ready for that change when it does, you know, officially kind of come down the board. Structured data markup, make sure that your SEO person or your agency is making sure that everything behind the scene is concise, you know, that it's good to go. Your local search, I'm a really, really heavy component of local search and Google Business Profile. Again, it goes back to those signals that we're sending, but I know on your phone when you're, you know, in the middle of your road trip and you're driving to the hotel, you know, or the vacation rental or the office or the condo, wherever you're going, you know, you're pulling up on your phone and what's the first thing you see? You see that, you know, that Google Business Profile on your phone, which kind of gives you the answers that you might need or gives you the link to the directions or the link to the office to call. So you need to make sure that that Google Business Profile is always optimized, always filled out. I look at a lot of Google Business Profiles throughout the week. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that I see that's pretty missed the most often is hours. People don't have their hours updated, specifically holiday hours. My tip here is always make sure that you have your business hours set up and also your service hours set up. You can have a difference between business hours as far as the brick and mortar building being open, and your service hours for your hospitality service or housekeeping, whatever. That can also be a separate line in your Google business profiles. And that's one of the biggest misses I always see. Also with your Google business profile and local searches, making sure that you are keeping up on your reviews. And we can go into a whole other conversation about reviews, because reviews themselves it's their own animal, but make sure that you are keeping up with your reviews and either responding online or thanking for the 5-star review, or if it is, happens to be a negative review, you're responding that you will take it offline and you give that customer information how to contact you offline. So all those things compiled together really, really make, performance important, because that's how all those signals will kind of group your website together and rank it and move it to the top and give the customer that great experience. We talked a little bit of, sometime last year, we did talk about how people come to your site if they don't get the information that they want, or you don't have the availability that they're looking for, they'll leave. And then because they're leaving so quickly, just simply, you may be booked up for July 4th. They'll go somewhere else. And that was acting as a deterrent and pushing your rankings down. That is a limited time basis. I don't want to say that this is the norm, that this is something that happens all the time. That is a small time window when you would maybe push down a little bit, just because something like your availability is all filled up, which is a great problem to have. But because when the consumer comes, they're not finding what they are looking for, Google interprets that as you don't have quality content, you leave, and then you get pushed down. But it's temporary. So it'll definitely come back. And all the other things that we're talking about today, that's like that sold out factor. All the things we're talking about today will definitely keep you well optimized for, the next time around.
Beautiful. And so I think if you are an ICND customer and you execute on these strategies, the great outcome from that is an opportunity to begin ranking for some of these generated answers. And so kind of excited to share this. This was an actual search that I did from my Google account yesterday. And we can see here, I was looking into doing some trip planning in Hilton Head, and I was served a generative AI answer right at the top there. And as you said, you can see how this is a big departure from the usual Google results page. It's given me a great agenda of things to go check out in the area. And what's really cool here is if we look down in what generated this response, one of our own shared customers, Island Time Hilton Head, is actually appearing as a citation and having created some content, and hopefully is seeing some traffic from this. And so I think this is a great example, kind of organically stumbled on it very recently, but a good example of how those SEO best practices can help earn you essentially a new ranking spot in Google in a place that did not exist before, but you can see is quite prominent. It's graphic. It's not just a blue link. And so if they're being viewed as somebody who's authoritative and trustworthy and has the experience on the ground for, arts and culture experiences, in this case, maybe I'm going to click through Hilton to Island Time and learn more about other opportunities and what else they can tell me about the area.
And I want to point out, I love this example. I love this result. I think it's great for today's discussion, but it's also, I want to point out too, this is changing as well, right? Like you may log in 3 weeks from now and do a similar search, and the result that you get may look different. The result may be similar, right? But the look and feel of it on your screen may look different. So, I want to caution people that what you're seeing today, you may not see next week. Google's constantly changing things. They're testing things. I know internally on the marketing team, somebody will say, well, what do you see? Well, how does it look for you? And I know you do that internally as well, because it's always changing. So the message here is don't be defeated if you're not seeing exactly what Braeden has on his screen after his result, because it is always changing. Google's still experimenting with this and how it will look for the consumer to consume it itself.
Yeah. And I think to your point, not only is it changing and it's different over time, it's different by user. It's being personalized for the individual user. And so that, yes, this is, as it says at the top there, this is experimental. It's definitely going to change. And even within the same day in the same household, what is served to me might be different than someone else doing a very similar query, because Google knows that different people have different preferences for how they consume information. They've even talked about releasing a setting for Gemini, which I think we'll see flow through to Google search, that will let you tailor the complexity and length of the responses that it gives. If you're somebody who has that 15-second TikTok attention span, great, it's geared to do that. If you're somebody who wants to see a greater depth of information, maybe it's just on specific topics, we can already see that these tools are being built to adapt to individual customer preference and what the individual is looking to see. And so when folks ask, what do I rank for a given keyword, that question more and more is kind of becoming for who, where, and when, because it's
right.
And so talking through, if you've been, as Island Time was here, or some of the other customers who are being featured in these snippets, they've gone through this experience, they've gotten personalized content delivered to them. You've earned this link, this placement, and the guest clicks through, and they now land on your site. What are some of the ways maybe we can talk about using AI and other strategies to continue that experience and maximize the chance for a conversion? And so that's really where Aidaptive can play a big role, is taking that personalization that we're all being trained to expect, whether that's our Netflix movie recommendations, our Amazon product recommendations, our Google search results. All of these digital experiences are tailored to the individual, and Aidaptive is releasing some tools to be able to continue that on your own direct booking website. And so just really briefly to kind of show how within reach this is, what we're doing is connecting all of your reservation history. So looking at the booking patterns for everyone who's completed a booking, combining that with real-time data coming from your website, coming from Google Analytics, to make these predictions about individual guest intent and predicting the properties that they're going to be most interested in, and then make sure that those guests are being marketed or being merchandised those specific properties, so they can't leave your site without seeing that you're the most compelling properties or products for them. So what this can look like in one example would be a predictive marketing recommendation. So in this case, we're showing, depending on who you are, when you land on this website, 3 different properties that are featured front and center in kind of a hero image. And depending on the context and the time of year and what booking window we're looking at, availability and pricing, looking at what that guest browsing behavior has been, what channel they came in from. Was it a Google search? Did they come in from social media? And how do they compare to those past guests? We can very accurately predict those properties that they're going to be most interested in, and then dynamically serve them so that they're very visible. If you're a property manager who's got hundreds of properties, I'm sure your reservationists know what a task it is to guide a guest to their ideal property. And so by using machine learning, we can be doing this in real time at scale with no effort by leveraging all that valuable data that you've been collecting. And that goes across the entire marketing funnel. So maybe that guest has landed on your site. They weren't ready to move forward. They weren't ready to book, but you've established yourselves as trustworthy and authoritative. They know you're a good source of information. They might be interested in staying with you later, so they sign up for your email newsletter. Now let's make sure that email newsletter is containing content that's personalized for them. Let's make sure the properties you feature in there are the ones they're most likely to click on and ultimately book, and not just be broadcasting the same one-size-fits-all inventory for everyone, because we all expect that higher touch experience. We all expect our digital life to be tailored to us. So that's kind of a
expectation, right? Like, what is expectation? Like, I want my digital experience to be tailored for me and me only, based upon my search history, based upon my preferences, based upon the types of ads I look at and videos I watch. Like, what an expectation today that they were now placed with is to make these search results tailored so much for the individual. Like, think about the things I spoke about at the beginning of the chat, where like it was kind of like a global, right? It was like one for all for one. Where now it's like the expectation is so high, that it's like, if I don't get this specific, tailored, customized, result for me alone, then maybe this is not the place for me to vacation. Like, that's a very high expectation, I think.
Yep. If you've ever logged into or checked into a vacation rental and turned on the TV and somebody else is still logged into Netflix, how wrong somebody else's personalization can be for you. Like when you look at somebody else's Netflix versus your own, the movie recommendations are off the wall. And so we've just kind of been slowly trained that for anything that we're interacting with online, it should reflect what we want and not, the 80% or the last person who was here. And so what Aidaptive and ICND are trying to do is bringing that experience to our customers' booking experience and make sure that you can deliver on that expectation before your competition can. So Diamond, looking forward, obviously this is a fast changing industry. I think we make predictions at our peril here. What do you kind of see on the horizon? How do you see this changing in the future, in the mid to long term?
It's like I'm so hesitant to make a prediction, and I apologize if I sound like I am in a tin can. I have a little bit of weather in my area, so I'm just hoping that this lag doesn't just completely cut me off the call. So I apologize for that. But where do I see long-term outlook? Well, I think when thinking about it, it's definitely something that's going to affect everybody in every industry across the board. It's something that we need to be up on our education, and aware that it's happening and that we need to start using AI in our everyday lives. And businesses need to start applying AI functionality to their comfort level now. But if you're not using it, guess what? Your competitor is using it. Guess what? The person that just opened their business last week is going to start using it. So we all have to be in it in it at the same time and learning as it, becomes available for us. And I think that kind of comes, same question for you. And you and I made a couple predictions here as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things I definitely see happening that's not going out on a limb too much is we can see the direction of in search AI-driven results becoming more and more prominent. And right now that might be, a small percentage of searches are triggering that generated response. But there's very clear consumer demand. There's a rush to deliver that. So I do think as the technology improves, you're going to see an increasing percentage of searches delivered with that experience. And I think this webinar couldn't have come at a better time because it is the right time to be thinking about how we appear there.
We will definitely see AI applied across all industries. AI in the workplace will address some critical pain points that we're seeing, such as time management and staffing, which applying AI for to your comfort level and the right tool at the right time will definitely start making customer service truly about customer service, because we're going to be answering those questions. We're making that quality content. We're, being the expert. So it'll definitely make the customer experience about the customer, because we will, lend up some of those time management and perhaps staffing issues to AI to work on that for us.
Gotcha. And yeah, my prediction is I think we all saw the massive wave of hype around AI, and especially in 2023. As the technology has matured, I think some of us can start taking it for granted. And I think some people kind of found it to be, in a lot of cases, more novelty than utility. I think that, the daily active users actually going into ChatGPT has stabilized. We're not seeing the insane growth there anymore. But my prediction is in the coming year, we're going to see that wave of hype peak again. We're going to see much more news about it. And we're going to see it re-enter the kind of popular culture conversation, because it's going to make the jump from novelty and a standalone tool that we're all kind of figuring out to something that's really embedded in the tools we're using every day and making them more powerful. And so I think as that becomes more obvious and that utility gets discovered, that's going to bring even more momentum to the conversation. More people are going to get creative about how they can apply generative AI, machine learning, predictive AI into their business without it being a specific thing you log into as its own tool, but part of your normal tech stack and something that's applied across the entire stack. So
I love your prediction, because a real life example of that is just 2 days ago, I had a neighbor come up to me at the Mail Cube and say, "Hey, do you know about this thing called ChatGPT? I just learned about this the other day at my dinner with girlfriends." And I was like, I just kind of stood there for a minute and rolled my eyes internally and was like, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." And she's like, "This is amazing." I was like, Okay, so to your point, yes, as it's discovered more by people, you'll definitely have that additional hype within the next year. And, that's a great example of, how that flows down and, how the hype will come back again.
Awesome. We are coming up towards the end of our scheduled time today, but we did want to leave some time for questions. For those who haven't noticed, in the Livestorm app, you can submit a question directly there. We've gotten a couple already, but should have time for a few more if anybody has anything top of mind, anything we can cover again that we talked through today. But Diamond, one that came in that I wanted to ask you was, as a property manager, should I be using ChatGPT to create an SEO strategy? Is that a substitute for a person driving my strategy?
That's a great question. If you're using it to create an outline on things you might want to do for your SEO strategy, sure. I mean, it's a great tool. I've gone on record before. I've been on other webinars where I said that ChatGPT is definitely a great brainstorming tool, and it's definitely a good tool to use if you're starting your research, right? So if you want to ask ChatGPT, like, create me an outline for an SEO strategy for my vacation rental marketing business or, vacation business, it'll give you a good outline. Now, maybe giving you the correct or the right answers or the exact things you need to do, you want to rely on your experts, whether on your own team or at your agency that you're working with. So I think it will definitely give you a good outline and a good roadmap to start going down. But as far as the specifics, I always say let the experts kind of drive the wheel there. Let them work through, because they're going to be the ones that are also up to date on all the information, right? If your summary that ChatGPT, spits out to you says, well, do this XYZ thing, and then you share it with your agency, and your agency is like, well, that was changed 3 months ago, or that does no longer apply. We just talked about infinite scroll going away. So you're going to want to rely on your experts that you surround yourself with to maybe tinker with that roadmap a little bit and put you on a good course for implementing your strategy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that SEO is inherently competitive. We all can't rank number one. And
so there's only one spot, right? There's only one spot.
Exactly. So if we want to rank at the top, would you, if you were a Super Bowl coach, if you were in any other competitive industry, taking something that is generated for you means you have the same playbook, you have the same strategy that your competitor down the street could have. That's the same amount, with the same amount of effort, they could have that. And so I think just be thinking about the inherent competitive nature of this. If you want to be beating people and actually showing up at the top, I don't think we're quite to where you can fully automate this with ChatGPT, and you do need to make sure that you're prompting it with insightful, correct prompts, and then somebody who on staff or in your agency understands how that strategy actually aligns with your business goals and the market.
Most definitely. Where would Andy Reid be if he took an AI generated playbook after all these Super Bowl wins? So, it's like he's not using AI to generate his playbook. He's taking cues from his experience and his authority, and he's adding that to create his own custom playbook for his Kansas City Chiefs there. So love that.
One of my favorite ways to use it is actually to give it a strategy or a document and ask it to critique it, ask it to poke the holes in it, because that's a great way to get a perspective that's not yours. So you can kind of lead that, but then understand maybe where the holes in your logic are or gaps in your strategy are. We do have one more question, it looks like. So we got a question. I want to add AI into my workflow. Where would I start on that as a marketer or a vacation rental manager? Like, where's a good place to begin with AI?
Okay, great. For me, I would say look at your overall strategy, right? From top to bottom, look at your strategy and really evaluate it and say, okay, what part of the strategy is causing me a pain point? Where is it sucking up a lot of my time? Where am I going off the cliff? Any of those things, like what is your pain point, inside of your bigger strategy, and then focus on adding starting with one tool that could help alleviate that pain point. Maybe it's an automated reservation system. Maybe it's using DALL-E to help you create some imagery. Like figure out what that one pain point is, and then start adding one tool to help alleviate that pressure and see how it goes. So you have to evaluate it, right? With any good experiment, you have to put the experiment out there and then evaluate how it went. So evaluate it, evaluate that new process, and then see if you're comfortable and see if your staff is comfortable and see if it did condense time and save you time or money or energy before adding any additional tools.
Love it. And I'll give a quick plug for, or take the opportunity to give a quick plug for Aidaptive. I think if you are someone who has been successful with SEO and you're driving a lot of traffic to your site, and you want to see that conversion rate improve or make the most of the audience you've acquired, another place you could consider getting started would be to use a tool like Aidaptive to layer in personalization on your website to better convert that traffic that you've earned. So that's kind of our core competency there, is making sure that we are taking all the information and data that you've gathered and leveraging its value to improve the guest experience for everybody who comes through your site, without requiring you to generate content or be involved in it on a day-to-day basis. It's really kind of set and forget for the most part.
I see there's a couple other questions, perhaps, or maybe some sentiments in the chat, and I just want to highlight those. Eric, is saying, I think a good starting point for AI in a property management operation is using it to reach out to confirm guests for upsells, trip extension, open days at discount, filling gaps. Again, yes, I love all of those examples and all those ways that you can use AI. Again, it's figuring out where is my pain point today and how can I use AI to help relieve some of that pressure for my team. And if reservations or filling the gaps is a pain point you've identified, then sure, that's where you're going to start, and you see if it works for you, your team, and then evaluate it, and then maybe layer on another tool, because this is not going away. It's definitely going to be enhanced and improved as time moves on, but it's not going away. So starting small and leveraging up, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful idea. I like that a lot. Excellent.
Thank you, Eric. All right. So any other questions in the chat? Or I know our contact information is up here on the screen for everybody. If you want to individually reach out to everyone, or here, you can contact me and Braeden this way. I do have something to share. If you've made it all 57 minutes with me and Braeden, I do have a little something to share. I think I should have a team member, or maybe Katie can put a link in the chat. ICND is giving a white paper away, ungated, totally free. We'll get the link in the chat, and it is some prompts for vacation rental managers to use when starting on their Chat GPT or their AI journey. So we do that as a thank you just for staying this long with us. If not, you can reach out to Braeden or I with your more direct questions. We definitely welcome those.
Excellent. Well, Diamond, thank you for being a great webinar partner today. Thanks to everyone who took the time to join us. And I will, apparently we have this link here. There we go. So if you are one of the folks interested in taking advantage of that content Diamond was just talking about, the link right here at the bottom of the page, icnd.net/GPT. And we've got some free resources for you. So thanks to everybody who joined us today. Hope you found that valuable. If you do have any questions, please reach out to Diamond or I. Otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your day and good luck with your direct booking journeys.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.